You picture the cave people as tougher than you. You think their nerves stayed quiet while ours scream over a paper cut. You have it exactly backwards. They felt every bit of it, and a few of them felt it harder than you ever will. What they had wasn't a duller body. It was a switch, an emergency switch buried deep in the skull, and that same switch is wired into you right now. The frightening part isn't how they survived the pain. It's what happens to the one person born without any. Look at him. A man crouched over a fallen mammoth, one hand clamped on a leg torn open to the bone, jaw locked so hard it could crack, and not a sound leaving him. Everyone tells you his nerves were turned down, that his kind simply felt less. There is no fossil that says so. There is no gene that says so. Pain is one of the oldest alarms in all of biology, older than humans, older than mammals, older than the dinosaurs, and the wound screaming up that caveman's leg is screaming through the exact same wiring as yours. He did not feel less. The real mystery is how he kept fighting with a leg like that. Watch what his body does in the next 3 seconds. The instant the flesh opens, his own brain hits him with a dose of homemade opium. Endorphins, enkephalins, they flood across his spinal cord, and the pain drops to a murmur. Not gone, muted. Muted just long enough to finish the kill or get off the ice alive. The body pays the bill later. This is the soldier who walks off the battlefield not knowing he has been shot, the driver who climbs out of the wreck before the agony lands. It is not ancient magic, and that switch was never his alone. The override runs on a clock. The danger passes, he drops down beside the fire, finally safe, and the dam breaks. The leg starts to scream exactly the way yours would. That heroic picture of the ancestor grinding silently through agony is only half real. The agony comes. It always comes. It just shows up late, which means the very thing that saved him is sitting unused in your skull too, right now, until the day it isn't. It is not even one switch. While the opioids are muffling the wound, a second line drops down out of the brainstem and sprays serotonin and norepinephrine straight onto the signal where it enters the spine. 2 separate brakes slammed at the same instant. Not a body wired to feel nothing for life. A crisis rig firing at full power, then quietly powering back down. The same hardware is idling inside you as your eyes move across this line. So if the wiring is identical, the old bones should show ancient people hurting just like us. They show something worse. Pull a real body out of the ground. Shanidar 1, a Neanderthal man, lifted from a cave in northern Iraq, a crushed eye socket that likely left him blind on one side, a withered right arm, gone below the elbow, 2 healed breaks in his legs, and a limp that bit him with every step, but the bone around every one of those wounds had grown back. He lived with all of it. For years, a man that broken could never feed himself on a mammoth hunt, so someone else did? His people carried him. 1 working arm, half a face that could not see, no way to forage on open ice, and still he kept breathing year after year, which tells the anthropologist that the tribe fed him and stood guard over him the whole time. They did not survive pain by refusing to feel it. They survived it by carrying each other. Some scientists still argue over how much help he really got, but the bodies keep coming, and the next one is grinning at us with a rotten tooth. Crack open a Neanderthal molar and look inside. A dental abscess has tunneled from the crown straight down into the living pulp. In a breathing mouth that is the kind of toothache that puts a grown adult flat on a cave floor. The same throbbing, white-hot pulse you would beg an emergency dentist to kill at 2 in the morning. No special numbness hiding anywhere in it. And they did not just lie there and take it. They went hunting for a cure. Scrape the hardened plaque off the teeth of a sick Neanderthal from El Cidrón in Spain, and you find poplar, the plant that carries the same active chemical as aspirin. Right beside it, traces of a penicillium mold. A caveman in agony was dosing himself with a painkiller and an antibiotic tens of thousands of years before the first pharmacy ever opened its doors. They were not gritting their teeth and enduring stoically. They were self-medicating. Look even closer at those teeth and you can watch the restlessness. Between certain Neanderthal teeth sit tiny worn grooves, the unmistakable signature of a toothpick shoved in over and over against a swollen, angry gum. It is a scratch you need a microscope to see. It is also raw behavioral proof of a person picking at an ache that would not quit, the cave version of you running your tongue across a sore tooth all day long without even meaning to. A toothpick sounds desperate. Wait until you see what they did with a stone drill. Roughly 59,000 years ago, a hand took a sharpened stone point and drilled into a rotting tooth, scooping out the dead tissue and breaking clean into the pulp chamber. It may be the oldest dentistry on Earth, done by hand, on a patient who was wide awake, in a cave by firelight. That is not how people behave when they cannot feel it. That is how people behave when they are desperate to make it stop. Some researchers still argue over that drill mark. So step forward a few thousand years to a frozen man whose skin is a map of his pain. Tutsi the Iceman, 5,300 years on ice, came out of the glacier wearing 61 tattoos, and not one of them is decoration. Around 80% of them sit directly over his worn-out joints, his ankles, his knees, his lower back, the exact spots later healers would needle for arthritis. His skin is a chart of everywhere he hurt, with a crude pain treatment inked straight onto the ache. And the joints under all that ink were not faking a single thing. Put his mummy under a modern clinical eye, and the diagnosis is one you would recognize from your own grandparents. Clear osteoarthritis, joints ground down by decades of hauling himself up and down mountains. A real, named, ancient human, aching with the same nagging chronic pain that jolts people awake at 3 in the morning today. Nothing turned down, just worn out. So flip it around. Picture a caveman who truly felt nothing at all. Now, the rawest scene of them all. All across the Stone Age, healers scraped holes clean through living skulls with chips of flint. No anesthesia. A wide-awake patient pinned down by the fire while the bone slowly gives way, and the skull around the hole grew back, smooth and rounded at the rim, which means the patient did not merely survive the agony of an open skull operation. They healed from it and walked on. The survival rate is where this stops sounding heroic and starts sounding impossible. Up to 1 in 10 Neolithic skulls pulled from the ground has a hole bored straight through it. At some sites, 70 to 80% of those holes show advanced healing. People were drilled open, lived, recovered, and at a handful of sites came back to be drilled a second time. They endured the worst pain a body can generate, and then they walked back in for more. They came back because there was nothing else. No pharmacy, only bark. And bark was the entire medicine cabinet. Willow, the source of the raw chemical aspirin is built from, was being chewed for pain 4,000 years ago and written into Egyptian medical papyrus by 1500 BC. Long before anyone could explain why it worked, people all across the ancient world were systematically tracking down anything, any leaf or root or strip of bark that would take the edge off the hurt. Which raises one dark question. What happens to the rare human with nothing to dull, because they feel nothing at all? Imagine a caveman born unable to feel pain at all. It sounds like the gift everyone in this story was missing. It is a death sentence. People born with congenital insensitivity to pain, fewer than 1 in a million, snap bones they never notice, rest a hand on the fire and smell it cooking before they flinch, chew through their own tongues in their sleep. The damage piles up in silence, and most of them die young from it. The alarm you curse every time you stub a toe is the only reason you are alive to curse it. So pain was never the weakness in these people, and now comes the part that turns the whole legend inside out. Here is the reversal. We read the Neanderthal pain gene letter by letter, and 3 of their mutations did not turn the volume down. They cranked it up. Their version of the Nav 1.7 channel fired more easily than ours does, which means Neanderthals very likely felt pain harder than you do. Sharper, quicker. The tough, numb caveman of the bedtime story is the precise opposite of what their own DNA confesses, and those genes did not die with them. A piece of that turned-up alarm is still walking around inside living people today. Where you live decides how much of it you carry. Those Neanderthal pain variants are all but gone from Europe, yet common across Latin America, and one of them peaks in Peru at around 42% of people. A controlled study measured this, not some legend passed down the generations. The more of that ancient ancestry a person carried in the pain gene, the lower their pain threshold actually tested in the lab. The caveman's amplified alarm is sitting, literally, inside millions of living humans right now. If you want to see a real off switch for pain, you have to leave our species behind entirely. The superpower everyone imagines the cave people had belongs, instead, to a wrinkled, blind, buck-toothed rodent. The naked mole rat rewired a single channel and genuinely cannot feel the burn of acid. It shrugs off chili pepper that tortures every other mammal on the planet. A real animal really did delete a whole flavor of pain. It just was not us. Nothing in the entire human past ever pushed our bodies to do the same, which leaves you, heir to the mammoth hunter, holding the same loud alarm he held, and one last thing to settle. So pull the camera all the way back. Off the ice, away from the fire, away from the mammoth cooling in the snow. The man bleeding in that opening image was never tougher than you. He carried the identical alarm, the identical emergency switch buried in his skull, and maybe a sharper sting running through all of it than anything you have ever felt. The only thing standing between him and you is a pharmacy and a soft chair. So the pain you flinch at tonight is not weakness leaking in. It is the same 500-million-year-old signal that kept him alive long enough to become you. And that switch, the one that saved him on the ice, is still loaded in your skull, waiting for the day you need it.